Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we have all seen in the last 25 years that the world has woken up to recognize that even India, which was earlier on growing at 3.5%, 4%, 5% growth, can actually grow at 7 to 8% of GDP every year. And India has been among the fastest growing economies in the world. Now, this growth has not come from agriculture. This growth has come largely from services, but also from the industrial sector, some parts of industry, whether it's auto components, pharmaceuticals, some parts of textiles, etc. And that means that this growth really has happened in the non-agricultural sector. So increasingly, we have seen that some cities of India have acted as engines of growth. And if we do aspire for 7, 8, 9, or 10% growth, this will have to be driven by industry and services, and it will have to take place in our cities. So cities have to act as engines of growth. We need to fix our cities for two reasons. One, that we want better quality of life in our cities. And second, because cities are really going to be the engines of growth. And why we need to have planning for urbanization is because our strategy of urbanization will also determine the fortunes of our rural sector. I always like to give the example of Punjab. Punjab used to be number 1 in per capita income amongst our major states in 1980-81. By 2011, it had come to number 6. And Punjab really developed in the glory of the Green Revolution when agricultural productivity increased. And later on, when there was need to develop an industrial strategy and link it with the agricultural base so that agriculture could move from the wheat and rice economy to value-added economy, to diversifying into more crops, when there was time to invest in logistics so that, Punjab could really develop. Punjab was, really not focusing on industry, and it paid a heavy price. So the moral of the story is that you need a strategy to fix your cities even when you want to fix your rural sector. So we are not just talking about cities, we are talking a central place for cities in the current stage of our development. There are two reasons why this has not happened in India. One, for a long time, we had very slow growth. But even when the growth began to move, our growth was not employment intensive. So even though agriculture contributes only less than 20% to our GDP, it still supports more than 50% of our population. And we need to build employment intensity of our industrialization. We need to skill our people so that we can create the supply for that employment. And then we need to create cities in which these skilled people and enterprising people can come together to generate wealth. Even though more and more Indians are moving from villages to cities, the political economy of India has not recognized this. And what do I mean by that? The first time this point was driven home to me was about 4 years ago when I was having a conversation with the Chief Minister of Bihar. I had gone to make a presentation of my report to him and his officials. And he said to me that when we ask our gram panchayats that we really want to notify this area as an urban area, they come back to us and say, nahi, hame gram panchayat rehne dijiye, because there is more money in gram panchayat. If you make us into a nagar palika, then there will not be that many programs which will come our way. And he said that's the main reason why we don't notify even when the census says that an area is ready for urban development. Now, this truth is driven home when you look at the results of the 2011 census. Census has a definition of a town. You have to have so much population, so much density, and that percentage of population should depend on non-agricultural activities. And by this definition, they find that between 2001 and 2011, there are more than 2,000 towns that should be declared as towns now. And those working on the urban sector have nicknamed these towns as census towns. Okay? So census wants these areas to be declared as towns. When you look at statutory towns, what the state governments notify as towns so that there can be a local government in that area, the increase in such statutory towns was only 200. And actually the difference is 2,000. So the earlier figure was like 2,300 or something, and only 200 or so have been declared as towns. So you have this 2,000 or so areas that should be towns. They should have local governments that should be pestering the state government for urban infrastructure. But in political wisdom of the state government, they have decided that they are not ready to call these as towns. So I call these areas lavaris areas. Unka koi mai baap hi nahi hai. So what happens is that you have these fringe areas. As cities expand, they have villages around them. These villages are ready for urban infrastructure, but in the absence of any empowerment, you end up having informal urbanization, informal manufacturing. I mean, we keep hearing these terms informal, and that comes out of this kind of political economy. I think the first time the Delhi state elections of last year really drove home this point to the government. Delhi being a city-state, the fact that the city-state is crying for empowerment was driven home with the victory of AAP government. And I think you will find this happening more and more as the pressures of urbanization grow, the demand for urban infrastructure and services. So e-governance has some implications for what we should expect. So, smart city is another larger and more ambitious version of e-governance, where we put in intelligent infrastructure, we do land use and transport planning, we do designing of our buildings so that we save on energy, we design the city in such a way that we need to commute less from our workplace to our home. When you do all of that together, and then you use IT as a powerful instrument for service delivery, planning, and management. When you use IT through SCADA to see that your water distribution system is working effectively, that's what essentially we mean by a smart city. It's probably easier to create greenfield smart cities than it is to fix an existing city with its challenges, but we will have to do both. And we will also have to connect these cities with their hinterland with rural areas. We'll have to take a development of region approach. So I think all these ideas are ideas whose time should have come even 10 years, 15 years ago. I'm glad that we are talking the talk, but now we really need to have good plans, active involvement of the state governments, building capacity at every level so that we can actually walk this talk. Thank you very much.